There is a person who has heard "you can trust me" enough times to know exactly what those words cost the person saying them, and exactly what they are worth to the person receiving them, which is nothing, which is less than nothing, because every time those words were followed by exactly the betrayal they were supposed to prevent, the brain didn't just record the disappointment, it updated its model of human beings in a way that is both completely rational, given the evidence, and completely devastating in its consequences. And if you are that person, if trust feels not like a reasonable social default, but like a naive and dangerous gamble that you have simply stopped being willing to make, then this video is not going to tell you that you should trust more. It is not going to offer you a motivational argument for opening up. It is going to do something more useful and more respectful than that, which is explain the precise psychological and neurological mechanisms that produce the inability to trust, validate the intelligence of that response given its origins, and then offer the specific insight that the research provides about what genuine trust actually is, how it actually works, and why the all or nothing relationship with it that trauma and betrayal tend to produce is ultimately as costly as the naive trust it replaced, even though it feels, from the inside, like the only rational position available. Let's begin with the neuroscience of trust, because understanding what trust actually is at the biological level dismantles several of the assumptions that make it feel more dangerous than it needs to be. Trust is not a decision in the way that most people conceptualize decisions. It is not a single moment of conscious choice to make yourself vulnerable to another person. It is a neurochemical process, governed primarily by oxytocin, the neuropeptide that researchers call the trust molecule, which is released in social interactions that feel safe, that involve reciprocal disclosure, that generate the specific neurological signal of being seen and responded to with care, rather than indifference or hostility. The brain's trust system is not a binary switch. It is a continuously calibrated assessment mechanism that is updating its model of the social environment with every interaction, every response, every moment of being treated with more or less care than the model predicted. And this continuous calibration is normally a sophisticated and adaptive process that allows the brain to develop nuanced, context-specific trust assessments rather than either trusting everyone or trusting no one. But when that calibration system has been exposed to a sufficient density of betrayal experiences, when the data it has collected about the reliability of other human beings is weighted heavily enough toward violation, it begins to apply a threat premium to all social interactions, to treat the possibility of trustworthiness as so statistically unlikely that the cognitive effort of evaluating it individually is no longer worth the oxytocin cost of the hope it requires. And the result is the generalized distrust that feels, from the inside, like clarity and wisdom, and that functions, from the outside, like a wall that keeps out everything equally, including the connections that would have been safe. Now, let's examine where the inability to trust comes from, because this is where the psychology becomes most important and most illuminating, and where the person who doesn't trust anyone will almost always find the specific history that their current social stance is a rational response to. Attachment research by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, extended through decades of developmental psychology, establishes that the basic template for trust, the foundational neurological expectation about whether other people will respond to vulnerability with care or with indifference, exploitation, or abandonment, is built in the first years of life through the specific quality of the relationship with primary caregivers, and that a child whose caregiving environment was characterized by inconsistency, emotional unavailability, betrayal, or the specific cruelty of having vulnerability punished rather than protected, develops what researchers call an insecure attachment style, an internal working model of relationships in which other people are fundamentally unreliable, in which dependency is dangerous, and in which the safest position is always the most self-sufficient one. This early template is not destiny. Neuroplasticity research consistently shows that attachment patterns can be updated through corrective relational experiences. But it is extraordinarily persistent because it was formed at the developmental period when the brain was most plastic and most impressionable, and because the behaviors it produces, the guardedness, the emotional self-sufficiency, the hypervigilance to signs of betrayal, tend to create the social dynamics that confirm rather than challenge the original template in the specific way that expecting betrayal produces the defensive behaviors that make genuine intimacy unavailable, and the absence of genuine intimacy produces the betrayals that seemed inevitable all along. There is also the specific contribution of adult betrayal experiences, the friend who revealed what was told in confidence, the partner who was precisely as unfaithful as the fear predicted, the colleague who took exactly the credit that generosity offered. And while these experiences are processed differently than childhood attachment wounds, they update the trust calibration system in the same fundamental direction, adding weight to the neural model that says other people cannot be trusted, strengthening the neural pathway that routes all social vulnerability assessments toward the conclusion of danger, and making the cognitive effort of trusting again feel not just risky, but genuinely irrational, given the evidence the brain has collected. And here is the final psychological truth about people who don't trust anyone. The truth that is simultaneously the most compassionate and the most honest thing that the research on trust has to offer. The inability to trust is not a character flaw, and it is not a permanent condition. It is the brain's most intelligent response to the specific evidence it has been given about the social world, running the most protective algorithm it knows how to run, doing exactly what a brain that has been hurt is supposed to do when it is trying to prevent the hurt from happening again. But it is also a solution that has become its own problem, because the wall that keeps out the people who would hurt you keeps out with equal efficiency the people who would not. And the life lived entirely behind that wall, however safe it feels from the inside, is a life from which the specific, irreplaceable, neurochemically and psychologically essential experience of genuine human trust has been permanently excluded, and that exclusion has costs that accumulate as surely and as expensively as the betrayals the wall was built to prevent. The path back to trust is not the path of naive openness. It is the path of graduated vulnerability, of small, deliberate, low-stakes experiments in allowing yourself to be slightly more known by carefully chosen people, of building a new evidence base for the trust system, one small, safe experience at a time, until the neural model of human reliability is updated, not by an argument, but by the only thing that has ever actually updated it, which is the lived experience of being trusted with someone's realness and responding with care, and being trusted with your own and receiving the same. Subscribe for more mind secrets.